Thank you for joining us here at KARE 11 News at noon. I'm Jason Hackett, filling in for CC this morning. A lot of things we're keeping an eye on right now, including a sentencing hearing for one of the people convicted in the Feeding Our Future fraud case and a decision to determine how the State House moves forward. We also got a ton of events happening this weekend. We're going to tell you all about it. But first, we have Mace here with a look at the weather. I feel like we're finally climbing out of that basement we've been in for the last week or so.
Exactly, and it's good timing for all of those weekend events.
Yes.
So many of them outdoors this time of year, of course.
Of course.
People
love the outdoors here in Minnesota.
Yeah, sure do, with various ice festivals and pond hockey. Well, it won't be as bitter as it's been the last couple of days. Cloudy skies over the area right now. Some dim sunshine at times. Temps, though, have warmed nicely through the upper teens to even around 20 degrees here in the metro. Western Minnesota, a few pockets of mid-20s right now. There's the cloud cover and some of the flurries, although not too many reports of flurries. A few there towards I-90, Fairmont to Mankato, over towards Albert Lee and Wilmer, northward to near New Ulm, St. Cloud, close to Brainerd and around Bemidji, and a few more snow showers back in southwest and west central Minnesota, up into the northwest corner, Fergus Falls to near Grand Forks. Temps today slowly climbing on into the 20s. Not any bitter air around today, at least for January, typical style. We will see warmer temps this weekend, and I'll have more on that coming up.
All right, Mace, we'll check in with you in a few. Thank you so much. Right now, one of the major players in the Feeding Our Future pandemic meal fraud case is in court waiting to learn his sentence. Mukhtar Sharif was convicted last spring. He had claimed to be serving meals at a Bloomington mosque, but was found to actually be using the money to fund a Somali event center. Officials believe he stole $25 million, and prosecutors are asking for 21 years of prison time. Sharif is the only defendant who testified in trial. His defense is arguing for his sentence not to exceed 7 years. At the state capitol, the question of who controls the House could be decided any minute now. It all comes down to if the GOP has the majority with 67 members when one seat is left open. Audrey Russo explains.
If a decision doesn't come today, then the legality of the House GOP's work this session will be in limbo until Monday. So far, some of their measures seem more like chess moves to get DFL members back to work, either voluntarily or by force. This week, they passed a measure demanding the governor use the state patrol to compel the DFL back to the Capitol. And a measure headed to the floor Monday would also strip the DFL of their per diem lodging and food payments. Now, the GOP is doing this with a one-seat majority. It's a temporary lead that could be erased with a special election later this year to fill an empty seat. The state Supreme Court's Chief Justice had harsh words to describe the entire situation.
What we have is a co-equal branch of government that is completely dysfunctional, that is not doing the will and the work of the people of Minnesota.
Now, GOP leaders tell us that they would entertain some semblance of a power-sharing agreement if filling the vacant seat ended in a tie. They say that that empty seat belongs to the people, not any one party. That district, though, historically votes Democratic. Back to you.
Audrey, thank you. Right now, students at the University of Minnesota are walking out of class. The Students for a Democratic Society will be joined by other organizations in a march showing opposition to President Trump's agenda. It's part of a nationwide student effort. We're also seeing growing concerns over the future of the boundary waters in northern Minnesota. Dozens of people rallied at the state capitol yesterday, calling for its protection from mining. The Biden administration temporarily banned mining in the BWCA, preventing two projects from moving forward. But now President Trump's energy policy would reverse that and open a path for mining. Supporters say mining would increase jobs and tap into critical minerals, but environmentalists feel it's too risky for the federally protected wilderness.
Point to an example where it's been done safely before we do it here. We don't need to do it here in Minnesota. There are plenty of copper mines out west. We could recycle. We could do a lot of other things before putting our most precious resource, our clean water, at risk.
Now, Republican Congressman Pete Stauber, who represents that area, responded to the rally, writing, quote, "There will be no mining in the boundary waters." However, he says he intends to make Minnesota a mineral powerhouse. In Southern California, firefighters have finally gotten the upper hand on most of those wildfires that have been burning out of control. However, now rain is bringing in a new set of problems. Here's NBC's Liz Kreutz.
Overnight, a new fire growing near San Diego. Flames from the border fire spreading in a remote mountain area, burning through over 800 acres. Firefighters working to contain it this morning and evacuation orders issued. As the smoke from the Hughes fire still fills the sky north of Los Angeles, more than 10,000 acres scorched in less than 2 days. But firefighters now say they have it under control, along with the other major fires that devastated communities earlier this month, like Pacific Palisades and Altadena. California Governor Gavin Newsom announcing legislation directing $2.5 billion to help with recovery efforts.
This money will be made available immediately.
Conditions in the lower half of the state ripe for fire. For the first time in more than 2 years, Southern California is experiencing what experts call extreme drought. San Diego recording its driest start to winter in recorded history. But now, with rain on the way, wet weather could provide both relief and danger for burn-scarred land, including concerns over mudslides.
What can happen when there's rain so close to these massive fires?
You'll get a large debris flow, mud flow coming off of these hillsides that no longer have the brush to stabilize the dirt.
Crews are installing barriers to prevent hazardous runoff from toxic ash as residents continue to pick up the pieces and rebuild.
Time check 12:06, and new at noon, we're learning the government has started using military aircraft to deport migrants. Just hours ago, the White House press secretary shared these images you see here of handcuffed migrants boarding a military plane. A Homeland Security official says the deportation flights began last night. 75 to 80 Guatemalans who recently crossed the border and were being held by Border Patrol were on board. Now, closer to home, new direction from the Trump administration is putting a hold on federal orders to reform the Minneapolis Police Department. Here's what we know so far.
I'm Raya Katene, and less than 3 weeks after Minneapolis and the Department of Justice came to a federal agreement on police reforms, the future of that legal document known as a consent decree is now unclear. A memo from the Trump administration says any settlements or consent decrees finalized within the last 90 days may be reconsidered. Based on similar past situations in other cities, Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara says it is likely a federal judge will still finalize the agreement. But even without one, O'Hara says the work to change the culture of MPD and regain the community's trust has been underway and will continue. MPD has been working under the state's version of a consent decree since 2023. A city spokesperson says funding for the federal agreement is being planned in the budgeting process, and the city says it's already working with an independent monitor to implement the terms outlined.
New developments this morning in the death of Vikings rookie Kyrie Jackson. A woman is due in court today to face charges in the deadly July crash. Officials in Maryland arrested 23-year-old Corey Klingman in the last 24 hours. According to police, she was changing lanes at a high speed when she crashed into Jackson and two of his former high school teammates, ultimately killing all three men. Klingman is facing 13 charges, including driving under the influence and vehicular manslaughter.
These were three young men who had gotten it right in life, who had amazing, bright futures ahead of them.
Now, we don't know yet if Klingman has a lawyer. Jackson was the Vikings' 4th-round pick in last year's draft and just 1 month shy from his 25th birthday. So sad. If convicted, Klingman faces up to 30 years in prison. We do have some good news.